Good evening, British Columbia and Nanaimo. It's 7 o'clock, and in British Columbia, we're going to begin this meeting by honoring our healthcare workers across this province. Please. Thank you, everyone, for the unorthodox but entirely appropriate way to commence council tonight. I'd welcome all of you to the April 6th regular meeting of council. I'd like to first recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Tonight's regular meeting of council will be held in accordance with the Community Charter, Council Procedure Bylaw number 7272 and Ministerial Order number M083. Therefore, members of the public are required to observe meetings virtually and not attend in person, unfortunately, but for the good of public safety and health. Delegation requests for unrelated council matters will not be permitted under this order and throughout the duration of the pandemic. Delegation requests related to agenda matters, such as a developer that would like to come speak to his or her development permit application, or a member of the public to speak to an item on the agenda, will be allowable as physical distance requirements can be maintained. Question period will be suspended throughout the duration of this order being in effect. Council will attend via teleconference, Zoom, or in person, maintaining physical distancing at all times, which, for those of you who can't see it, is exactly what's happening in the Shaw Auditorium tonight. Councillors Hemmens and Thorpe are sitting at the usual table where council sits, but everybody else is spread safely throughout the amphitheatre. Members and staff that are partaking in the meeting will be likewise spread out and are in the auditorium in the marked seating or outside in the lobby area. And the first item on the agenda is the introduction of late items. Ms. Gurry, please.
Thank you, Worship. On this evening's agenda item 10A, downtown sidewalks and tree repairs, we're adding a PowerPoint presentation for information. Agenda item 10C, development permit application number DP1155 for 6117 Uplands Drive. We're removing the delegation from David Foley. He wasn't able to attend and get transportation over to the island this evening. And we're adding agenda items 13D and 13E, Councillor Bonner, motions deferred from the special council meeting April 1st, 2020. That's it, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. A motion for approval of the agenda is amended. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Martman. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. A motion for the adoption of the minutes that have been already circulated. Moved Councillor Hemmens, seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next is the Mayor's report, and forgive me, I have a number of items to go through, so I will be a little longer than usual. Firstly, Nanaimo Recreation Coordinators promote health and wellness online. Wellness Bingo was the first online activity launched at the Nanaimo Parks and Rec Instagram page. Residents are encouraged to complete the activities and submit the completed bingo card for a chance to win prizes, community feedback such as excellent tips for a healthy lifestyle and altering moods for people. And this is awesome, thank you. Encourage coordinators to continue generating online ideas. The newest activity is on the Harbour City Photo Challenge, where coordinators are posting previously taken images of beautiful Nanaimo parks and asking residents to guess where this was taken. So there's a chance to see if you really have been out and about in your beautiful city. The next is the City of Nanaimo's operations update while dealing with COVID-19. On Wednesday, April the 1st, a special council meeting was held to discuss the city's response. While each function provided a detailed update to council, the common message is that the city facilities may be closed to the public, but the work continues and we are open for business. The city wants to assure the public that they are focused on keeping critical services running without interruption. This is a province-led emergency and the city is adhering to the provincial health orders. Therefore, many changes have had to be made to ensure compliance. Internally, staff have implemented new physical distancing safety measures. Externally, thanks to the distance collaboration platform meetings with the public, developers and consultants have moved online to ensure business can still move forward and development occur in our city. Nanaimo Fire Services continues to focus on fire suppression and smoke detector installation. that is still taking place to ensure community safety beyond COVID-19. I would hope that all of you will not treat this as an opportunity in the public to discourage people from coming to Nanaimo or considering investing here or developing here. Our staff are anxious to work with everyone where possible. The city is also providing COVID-19 responses for vulnerable populations. On March 26th and 27th, the province issued ministerial orders and directives for municipalities to ensure supports are in place for homeless populations during the pandemic. On a special council meeting on Wednesday, April the 1st, council was updated with actions the city has taken and presented with motions for their consideration to provide support to vulnerable and homeless populations. In terms of the key points, we are working as a city with Island Health and BC Housing to assist in planning for accommodating those experiencing homelessness who may need to be isolated as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Health and Housing Task Force will reconvene to identify strategies to assist those experiencing homelessness in Nanaimo during the COVID-19 pandemic. And one strategy includes the development of a food security plan to identify funding, procurement, and distribution options to provide safe and consistent meals for individuals experiencing homelessness and the vulnerable population. The city is also providing additional washroom, hand sanitizing, and potable water facilities in the downtown for those experiencing homelessness. I want to emphasize what I've already indicated around the way this meeting is conducted tonight, and that is that on March 26th, a ministry order was announced allowing for changes to council meeting processes during the COVID-19 pandemic. And as I've outlined how our meeting is operating tonight, we are bound by that and will continue to do so. Regular meetings of council will go ahead as scheduled, but again, without the public being able to attend in the normal way. Special council meetings, criteria noted for special council meetings is in line with the ministerial order number M083 and the accompanying guidelines. Special council meetings may be called to deal with emergent matters due to COVID-19 and the order. Special council meetings will be held at the Service and Resource Centre at 411 Dunsmuir Street. They will be conducted electronically only by Zoom or other electronic format, as attending virtually allows council to comply with physical distancing. The public, again, unfortunately will not be able to attend because of physical distancing requirements. Meetings will be recorded, however, and live streamed. And question period will be permitted throughout the duration of this pandemic, will be omitted rather, throughout the duration of the pandemic and while the order is in effect. Finally, a small community request for Diabetes Canada. Diabetes Canada donation bins are overflowing, and they have been fortunately become a dumping ground for well-meaning citizens who want to support their work. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and crucial physical distancing orders by government, the pickup of all textile donations by Diabetes Canada from homes and donation bins across Canada was stopped on March 23rd. The current donations at the donation bins, and in some unfortunate instances, the dumping of garbage at donation bins, is posing a serious health and safety issue. So they are asking through council to please hold off on donations for the time being, and so that you can continue to support and not make difficult the people at Diabetes Canada, who with their support help support 11 million Canadians living with diabetes or pre-diabetes. And this is extremely important. We are getting a number of questions and comments around clarifying the role of bylaw enforcement during COVID-19. I'm going to read this news release in full. Pardon me for being redundant, but I think it's really important that people understand. The province declared a provincial state of emergency on March 18th, 2020. Since that date, a number of ministerial orders have been issued. Both provincial health officers and local bylaw officers, the people who work for us, for you, for the city, have been asked to provide assistance for compliance and enforcement of orders around the following very specific terms. It is provincial health officers, not city staff, who will be monitoring all food premises, including restaurants, mobile food vendors, and grocery stores, as well as personal service establishments and pools. Municipal bylaw enforcement officers, again, the people who work for us at the city, will oversee and report infractions associated with community facilities such as community halls, museums, places of worship, tourist enterprises, recreational facilities, and private property. If you want to report a provincial health infraction, food premises including restaurants, etc., then contact Island Health at 250-755-6215. To report a municipal issues, community facilities again, like community halls, museums, places of worship, contact the City Bylaw Department at 250-755-4422. More information on the compliance and enforcement guidance can be found on the BC Government's COVID-19 Orders, Notices and Guidance page. And please note, while there are no public health officers requiring the public to maintain physical distancing outside their own homes, the province has provided strong recommendations and guidance. And if you value your neighbors and your friends and your loved ones in this community, please comply. The strategic link livability is identified as one of the key priorities in the 2019-2022 strategic plan. The city plays a crucial role in ensuring the public's safety through the RCMP and bylaw services. I have just repeated to you the crucial points around this, what the city bylaw officers are authorized to do and not do. So please, if you have a complaint that relates to the matters I've indicated, report it to the appropriate person. The next thing I want to talk about is the very good work of our city staff, as usual, facing a genuine crisis. On Friday evening, 2 major water mains located under Bowen Road broke, causing damage to the road and many residents to experience loss of water pressure. The city's public work crews were on the scene within 15 minutes and reacted quickly to shut down the flow of water. Fire rescue was on standby with tankers in case there was a fire in the areas affected. Mercifully, Nanaimo's Napit Industries was called in to repair the mains, which they did in record time, supported by the public works crews. Excuse me. An enormous thank you to them for their quick response and their expertise. The road is expected to be repaved and open before the Easter weekend. In the meantime, 2 lanes of Bowen Road southbound remain closed to traffic between Meredith and Dufferin, and 1 lane northbound is open. We were very fortunate on a number of points. No one was hurt, especially the traveling public. Beyond the damage to the street, there was minimal damage to private property. City crews pulled together very quickly to shut down the area of the break and restore normal service to residents. We have ready access to a highly experienced contractor, Napit Industries, that mobilized first thing on Saturday morning. And moreover, the city had the foresight through its good staff to have the materials in stock against just such an eventuality. Mercifully, traffic was lighter than normal due to the public adhering to physical distancing measures. But this incident is a very good reminder to all of us of the need for consistent investment in our infrastructure, which is one of our main responsibilities, and the city's essential service to deliver to the community. So I want to thank the public for its patience during this significant disruption. I want to express thanks to the businesses in the neighborhood who supported the crews while they're out there working. And a special thanks to our city staff and their crew and all of those who work with Napit on this project. While many of us were sleeping happily, they were attending to what is a serious emergency. As I understand it, a significant portion of that neighborhood, including even the hospital, had water services disrupted, and this is a timely reminder of how important that is. Finally, on what I will call the human side, I know for all of you, as this pandemic continues and disrupts our lives in a myriad of ways that many of us had not thought about, from the simple issue of whether you can get your hair cut, to the supply of groceries, to the price of goods, to your employment, to the potential of your employment, to the loss of revenue in your business, to the loss of your business, to the health concerns that many of us face within our neighborhoods, our friends, our family, who may be very susceptible to this COVID-19 virus, or who have other health issues where they've had to have operations delayed, to the healthcare workers who are striving mightily in difficult circumstances to deliver health care, daycare operators ensuring that healthcare workers' children are cared for during this time. I just want to reiterate that we will get through this. These are indeed challenging times, unlike any of us have seen before, unless you're old enough to remember the Second World War, the Great Depression, and there's not many of those folks left, and indeed, sadly, they are the most at risk in our community. I just want to say thank you for what you're doing. We have had a number of complaints at the city around a failure to socially distance, or physically distance as it's called now, particularly at Westwood Lake, as I mentioned the other night, the Blueback Stairs. But I have reports back that people are being more cautious and more careful and more respectful. The statistics tell us that most of us hopefully will not get this virus, but none of us know who will. And none of us know when we've come in contact with somebody, and we may be the transmission vehicle that makes somebody ill that might lead to the loss of their life. So to all of you, please pay attention, be respectful, be kind, be safe, limit your activities, continue to self-isolate. I know how frustrating that can be for people, particularly people who suffer from depression issues, who are isolated at home, isolated from their friends. What a difficult time it must be. For those of you who face various vulnerabilities, remember when you see somebody and talk to them, you have no idea what's going on in their personal or private lives for many people. So this is a time to be really, really kind, as Dr. Henry reminds us continuously. I want to thank Council for continuing to do its work during this time, and also to city staff who continue to do their work. As I emphasized earlier, in the middle of the night, when things break, they were there for the city. Let us be kind to one another. Thank you. Again, my apologies for the length of the report, but these are unusual times. We have no presentations, Ms. Gurry. We have a number of items. We have no delegations, obviously. We have a motion for adoption of consent items, please. So moved. So moved, Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Martman. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Turley, you're a yay, I assume? Thank you very much. That motion carries. There next are reports, and it's Mr. Sims, downtown sidewalks and tree repairs.
Thank you, Your Worship. Briefly, I'll just introduce Mr. Rosen and Mr. Mousseau, who are here this evening, just to talk about this particular issue. I want to acknowledge they've worked cross-departmentally to address this. This is, where many of us are familiar with the number of beautiful trees we've got in the downtown core, and also the effect of the tree roots on the sidewalk. So these gentlemen have been thinking a little bit about that, and I'll pass it over. And I'll even though I didn't touch it.
Your example is timely and appreciated. Good evening.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. So the report you have in front of you is really aimed at improving the pedestrian safety for sidewalks, in particular in the downtown. The challenge is that some streets or some street trees, they have either aggressive roots or they were never originally provided with appropriate root growing space. So they've adapted to their environment by lifting concrete panels or pavers, and in some cases, even the curb or the road is damaged as a result of this. This damage, it can create an unsafe situation for pedestrians, in particular those with mobility challenges. City crews, they do their best to maintain things, but with the roots constantly growing, it is very difficult to keep up. The street trees downtown, they had a great deal of value, and removing them can be a sensitive subject. In particular, if the tree is in good shape or it has other special meaning for the community. Although trees can be a sensitive subject, it is necessary to manage and maintain an inventory of them. There are some that are unhealthy, some that are stunted or damaged or at the end of life. It's generally not expected that street trees will live out their entire life cycle. With this report, staff proposed to tackle a small number of trees in the downtown that are currently an issue. There's 3 on Commercial Street at Skinner, 2 of which have lifted the pavers, and the roots are too high to just raise the sidewalk around them. The 3rd tree is really not healthy. It's a bit of a stunted tree. The plan is to remove the 3 trees, restore the sidewalk, create sufficient growing space for new roots, and then replace the trees with an appropriate species for the location. There's also a tree up on Skinner Street near Bastion. It has some structural damage, probably from wind. It needs to be taken down for safety reasons. Unfortunately, the sidewalk there is extremely narrow, and we won't be replacing that tree just because for mobility access reasons. There's also a few other locations around the downtown, particularly around the conference center here, where the issues aren't quite so serious, but we might be able to be proactive and improve the area around the existing trees with some sort of innovative ideas like rubberized concrete or some other treatment to help mitigate the surface damage. The proposed work this year, it's really intended to deal with just a few of the most urgent locations. The plan is that each year we would tackle some of these, just a few of these sort of more priority locations, really so we don't impact too many trees, mature trees in the downtown in any one year. Just really sort of minimize that. I'd also like to point out that tree removal isn't always the only option. In some cases where the tree has a really high value or a real special community meaning, it might be possible to accept higher frequency damage to the sidewalk surface. And what I mean by that is we could potentially go into an area and replace sidewalk panels like every 3 or 4 years. The downside obviously is cost. It's quite expensive to do that. And there are some examples in the downtown core where, for example, there was a large mature oak tree and it was damaging the sidewalk, so we would just come in and replace that sidewalk panel every couple of years, just because the tree is such a valuable tree. With the trees this year, particularly the ones at Commercial on Skinner Street, we did consider that as an option, but because of the elevation of the roots, it's really not a practical option to just raise the sidewalk because of the proximity and the grade of the business entrances right there. It just wouldn't work. So with that, I can accept some questions. I also have Dean Musso with me, who's the Manager of Engineering and Environment and oversees the Urban Forestry Program. So if you have questions specifically about the trees, he'd be the guy to answer those. So.
Thank you very much. Councillor Armstrong has a question. But don't touch the podium.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question, when you're replacing, like those are the, I guess whatever kind of blocks they are, one thing we heard from the accessibility community is all the different varying types of sidewalks we have. And those are very hard for them to wheelchair on, or walkers or women walking in heels get stuck in them. Is that something that we could look at to have a consistency on how our sidewalks are done? And like, even if you can look at the slope there. Thank you.
So to answer Councillor Armstrong's question, the game plan with the tree sidewalk issue is really localized around where the tree roots are. The intention isn't to upgrade all the sidewalks. It's really just to repair the issues around the trees. And in most cases, to provide sufficient root medium for a new tree, we have to pour a structural concrete panel that it'll actually have rebar in it because it'll have a void space underneath it to provide future growing space for roots. So likely we won't be able to put back the pavers, but we'll look at each specific location in its entirety to see what the options are. Certainly understand the overall issue around having pavers and the sort of the localized undulations that can occur. That's one of the trade-offs with having pavers. They look good, but they are a little bit of a higher maintenance sort of risky thing.
Councillor Markman, then Councillor Turley, then Councillor Bonner. Pardon me, Councillor, sorry. Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Turley, and then Councillor Bonner.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Through you, if I may, to Mr. Rosen, thank you for the report, and I certainly like the idea of a pilot project approach to this, and I'll be interested in hearing the results after the first round of removals or repairs. My question is not related directly to trees, but I was interested in the report that a number, as we know, of the trees we're talking about have plaques associated with them. And as somebody interested in the history of the city, I know you talk in your report about possibly reinstating the plaques or contacting the donors and maybe returning them. So I'm curious, would reinstating the plaque be a first option if it's possible?
Through Your Worship, to Councillor Thorpe, I think one of the things we'd like to do is we'd like to reach out to the donor of the plaque, if we can find them, and present them with a number of options. One of the options would be just to reinstate the plaque. Another option would be they can take the plaque, and there might be a few other options we could present to them, because it depends on how they feel about having the tree removed and having the plaque reinstated, because they might have it might be more important to them to have the plaque back, or it'd just be nice to be able to provide them some options.
I see. All right, thank you very much.
Councillor Turley.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question and a comment. There's 4 pictures in the report, and I was reading it. The one that I don't see as being on the list of being fixed is the one at the foot of Victoria Road, next to the old, it used to be the old fire. Now it's the Fire Hall Restaurant. But I see it listed as top of Victoria Crescent. Is that the one that you're referring to?
Through your worship.
Did you hear me?
Through your worship to Councillor Turley. So what I'm hearing is I had included a number of pictures in the downtown of example sidewalk damage from trees. One of the pictures was out in front of the Firehouse Restaurant on Victoria Crescent. That's an example where the tree roots have pushed out the pavers. Other than it pushing out the pavers, it's not a critical high priority. I mean, we could have probably tackled 20 tree locations this year, but we really wanted to start small, pick the worst ones first. That is one of the areas that certainly would be of a concern, and we'll certainly monitor it closely, but that wasn't a location we were planning to tackle this year.
Perfect, that's what I thought. The second comment is, given Councillor Thorpe and myself, in our history in the community, if you have a list of the names and the plaques, we might be able to figure out who they are, who the offspring are, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not putting the pressure on you, Ian, but we may be able to help out.
Thank you very much, Councillor Turley, for the offer of your historical assistance. Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you too, Mr. Rosen. From a landscaping background that I have and having laid lots and lots of pavers in my life, the idea of this sidewalk, if I'm looking at this one specifically, have you thought about the idea of just lifting the pavers, taking a lot of the dirt out, planing down the roots to a certain level, and then just putting the pavers back on again? To me, that would be a more cost-effective way and would last quite a few years.
Through your worship, Councillor Bonner, certainly we've considered that option. There was a large group of staff, park staff, engineering staff, urban forestry staff, operations staff that got together to really brainstorm about all the possible solutions here. And that was certainly one that we talked about. And that would be one that I would fit into the category of this is a special tree, or it's a special case, because certainly if we don't deal with the roots in a way that allows a tree to sort of sustain itself in its environment, it'll continue to push the pavers or the concrete up. So it would certainly buy us some time, but it would not be a cheap option. I mean, certainly pavers, there's a lot of labor involved in placing them. And as we talked about earlier, there's also some risk involved in the roots continuing to sort of pop them up and creating a trip hazard and stuff like that. I think our preference would be around areas where there's been problems with tree roots. We would probably prefer to install concrete around there. Even though it may be an environment where there's pavers, we would probably delineate a bit of a boundary and then have some concrete and then tie the pavers back into it. That would be our preference.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Martman.
I'd like to move then that council direct staff to complete sidewalk tree repairs at the prioritized locations in the downtown in 2020.
Seconded Councillor Hemmons. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Turley?
In favor?
In favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. I'm hesitant to call timber, but I won't. Solid Waste Report 2019. Mr. Sims, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. It actually gives me pleasure to introduce a number of people here today. Mr. Thompson, who's sitting back to my right, to your left, has been handling the portfolio of managing the sanitation system since about the summertime. And prior to that, he was with us for a year while Ms. Davis was on mat leave. And 2 additional staff that I'm very pleased to introduce. One is Mr. Taj Dalaran, who comes to us from the City of Victoria. He is now our permanent manager of sanitation. So he's jumped in with both feet about, I'm losing track of time. March has been a long year so far, but I think it's about 2-3 weeks. And Ms. Kirsten Gillane, who is our zero waste coordinator, has been doing some excellent work in putting not only together this report, but in developing public educational materials and wrangling the crew sometimes as well. So we're very pleased to introduce all three of them, and they'll present this brand new solid waste report that we're starting off this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome.
Wipe it down.
You wipe it if you wish.
Okay. Hello, Your Worship and Council. Thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to bring forward this report from our sanitation department. So, use this clicker. There we go. So this 2019 solid waste summary report is serving as a benchmark. So this is 2019 is our first full year with the automated service. So this is really our first full year of data that we can bring forward, and it's going to serve as our sort of benchmark for going forward and making all the progress with the new programs and other things that will be implemented. So with the automated program going into place, there was 3 main goals, and those were worker safety, increased resident convenience, and to add a yard waste stream into our organics. So for worker safety, this was reported to you, I think, back in November of 2019, but we did report that there was a 90% reduction in worker injuries. As well, for resident convenience, there was a 50% reduction in work orders. So this was going out and following up with any issues that might be taking place in curbside. And then adding yard waste, of course, it's there and it's available for residents to use. And as you'll see throughout this presentation, residents have definitely taken part in utilizing that yard waste stream. So as well, waste diversion from the landfill has increased. So I'll show that to you in the next slide. And overall collection rates of curbside waste has increased as well. So this is our curbside waste diversion rate. So waste diversion is overall the amount of waste that we are diverting from our landfill. So in this slide, if we're looking at maybe 100 kilograms of waste, this year in 2019, we are diverting 66 kilograms of that, and 34 kilograms or 34% is going to the landfill. So you can see here in 2012, that was when we introduced the green bin program, so taking in food scraps, and that really increased our diversion rate. May 2014 was the launch of the Recycle BC recycling program, so not much of a change there. And fall 2017, summer 2018 was the 2 phases of the automated curbside implementation. And then, of course, the purpose of this report, 2019 is the first full year of having that automated program in place. And way over in the corner there, that is the 90% waste diversion goal. That's part of the regional district's solid waste management plan. So we are going to be helping assist them and get to that goal, and that would be a great goal for our curbside program as well. So really to understand the waste coming from our curbside program, we're looking at what is collected in our curbside streams and trying to understand that as far as overall waste generation within our community. So in this slide here, what we have presented is the 2017, 2018, and 2019 annual volumes going to RDN facilities. So it's a little hard to see there, but on the solid blocks are our curbside volumes, and then the ones with the spots, they are our self-haul volumes, so from residents bringing in materials directly to RDN facilities. So what we've been able to see is for curbside organics, there's been a huge increase there. So that's residents being able to utilize the yard waste stream is really what we're seeing the increase there. And yard waste being self-hauled into the landfill has not changed very much. As far as landfill at curbside, so that's that solid gray block there, there has been an increase, but we're comparing that to our self-haul in landfill rates for residents bringing those materials in. So there's been a huge decrease there. And that's an even larger increase when we start to factor in population growth that has taken place over the past couple of years.
Can I just ask a question around the yard waste self-haul? What does that include? Does that include commercial as well as residential?
So it would be any customer coming in that doesn't have an account with the RDN disposal facilities. So most of those would be residential customers, but there would be some commercial customers that don't have an account. So it's not, what we really know with our data is what we collect at the curb, and this is helping supplement our understanding of trends that might be happening. And the purpose of this report really is to showcase our 2019 data, and this is just to sort of aid in understanding of what's been happening with the past couple years and solid waste trends. So here we have our kilograms per household that's been generated in the program. So you'll see there 2016, 2017, they're identical numbers. Our overall tonnages, they are different, but it's come out there in the kilograms per household. In 2019, there was quite a large spike in landfill waste coming through our curbside collection program. And that is mainly due to the larger carts that have been implemented. So the previous volume was 77 liters, and now we have an 120 liter curbside container for landfill waste. Recycling has remained fairly consistent over the previous years. And again, organics volumes have gone up considerably, so there is a 35% increase there in the volumes coming in. And overall, curbside generation has been increasing as well. So that is indicative of the resident convenience and being able to take part in this program. And due to being able to put more material into our curbside bins, that's resulting in less self-haul trips to the landfill, which is reducing greenhouse gas emissions for folks that are utilizing the curbside program. And overall, we'll look at the landfill diversion rate there. So we've had a slow increase over the past few years. And we can take a look here at our monthly curbside waste generation. So this is from January 2018 to December 2019. So you can see there's quite a seasonal change in the volumes coming in, as well as a slightly higher increase after that second phase of the automated program coming through. So this is really why we want to get that data across as getting that benchmark for 2019, because there's so much change coming through month by month. And as well on this slide is the household count. So you can see there's been a really big spike since about June 2019, and those are affecting our curbside volumes. And this is where we look at the monthly household curbside waste generation rates. So you can see again, there's quite a fluctuation in the curbside collection rates coming through. And this is again from January 2018 to December 2019. Overall, we can get a better idea of the waste generation trends. So as opposed to the waste collected at the curbside program. Waste generation we'll look at a regional level. So this is data that's coming from the municipal solid waste tracking with the Ministry of Environment. There is some years missing, so 2006, 2008, 2009, and 2011. But overall, we can see there's a general decline in the kilograms of waste disposed per person. And there has been a slight increase in 2016, 2017. And this is the most up-to-date information we do have. The Regional District of Nanaimo, so all of the folks, including residents of Nanaimo, we sit at about number 3, so generally we fluctuate between number 1, number 2, number 3 throughout the years. We're significantly lower disposal rates per person, below the BC average, and we are the lowest municipality with a population above 100,000 people. So moving forward, again, this is to serve as a benchmark year for future progress. We are planning a curbside materials audit this year, so we're really going to get a good understanding of the waste that is in our system, so we can modify and create new public education programs to really figure out what's going into the landfill and how we can decrease that. We're also going to assist in the implementation and liaising with the Regional District of Nanaimo's Solid Waste Management Plan that was recently approved by the Minister. So most notably, those programs will be the mandatory source separation program, so affecting the multifamily buildings and ICI sector. And then we'll be refocusing that I will be refocusing that to the resident outreach and education. So one of our big tools here is the Recollect system, in which we have over 21,000 residents signed up for. So as part of our 28,000 households, that's a really good reach to people that are utilizing our curbside program. And we really encourage everyone who's part of the program to take part in that, and we can get out direct information on there. We'll also be redoing the events, which are the trunk sale and reuse rendezvous, and as well bringing forward the single-use checkout bag regulation. So overall, we have a really good service, I think, coming into this program, and really good resident participation. There is room for improvement, and myself and Taj, we are really excited to jump on in and introduce new programs and interact with our curbside residents to bring down those waste levels and then make sure we are recycling and putting materials into organics that should be going in there. Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I do have one question and a couple of comments, if I may, with your indulgence, through you to Ms. Gilleen, is that correct?
Close enough.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Dallaran, welcome to you as well. Appreciate you being here. You stated that you thought we had a very good program, and I disagree. I think we have an excellent program, and all of the comments that I have heard from members of the community have been extremely positive. The convenience of the bins, the option for the yard waste, it's been very well received, and that's a credit to the staff that have worked on this. Hard to imagine, I think, that we did not have automated collection just a couple of years ago. Just amazing. My question is related to WorkSafe, and I'll be very interested in knowing how our premiums will be affected for the better by moving to automation. As you indicated, our worker injuries are down drastically. How long before we will hear from WorkSafe about premiums and how they've been affected? Another couple of years, maybe?
Thank you, through your worship. Councillor Thorpe, WorkSafe BC premiums are calculated on a 3-year rolling average, so we won't see the results of the decrease in injury rates for another couple of years. 2022 is probably when we'll see those have the biggest impact.
Thank you. That's what I thought. But anecdotally, it's very obvious that injury rates are down drastically. If I may, Your Worship, I think we can be very proud of our diversion rate, as Councillor Geselbrock well knows with his work at the RDN, and you referenced the approval of the solid waste management plan by the province, which will give us a new target and new abilities to reach a target, but I think we're doing extremely well at this point. I would just like to point out that this was not an easy program to put in place, and I have to give credit to the previous council, Your Worship. It was one of the positive initiatives that I think came out of the last council, and I really have to give credit to Mr. Thompson and also to somebody who has moved to a different department within the city now, and that is Charlotte Davis, who fought very hard to get this program up and running and was a real advocate for it. And I would like to publicly thank her and acknowledge her efforts. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And thank you, Councillor Thorpe, for doing a very good job of acknowledging the people who put a lot of time into this. Councillor Turley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to staff, just a question on the annual volumes to the RDN facilities. I'm not sure I heard the answer, but I think you're still there.
Yes.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. A lot of background noises. The landfill self-haul, you indicated that including some commercial, but not commercial haulers.
I didn't hear the question. Councillor Turley, a little clearer if you can.
I'll slow down a bit. The landfill self-haul from the bar graphs on the annual volumes to RDN facilities. The self-haul, I thought I heard somebody say that it did not include commercial haulers that have an account. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. So it's the self-haul customers would be those who don't have an account with regional district disposal facilities.
So that could potentially include a lot of residents who live in apartment buildings and condo buildings, which use commercial haulers?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, tonnages that we don't have are a lot of those that are for institutional, commercial, and industrial sectors, as well as multifamily sectors. This is to help understand our curbside. So folks that would maybe have, before the automated program, been making regular trips to the landfill. Now they're able to utilize that extra volume in their curbside cart.
Perfect. And then the same would be true with the organic and yard waste?
Yes, so with the inclusion of the yard waste to organic stream, that's where we're comparing the organics at curbside and then just yard waste for the self-haul to the RDN disposal facilities.
Thank you very much, and my compliments to everybody involved as well. I'm extremely happy to hear about the lower number of worker injuries and WCB claims. Thank you.
Councillor Armstrong. Everybody run from the mic.
I'm used to that, no. Actually, it's just a comment. I promised the kids in Parkwood that I would thank the truck driver, or the drivers, because they've actually stopped using proper social distancing and showed the kids how the truck works. They're absolutely fascinated by it, and I promised them I would say thank you to the drivers in that area, so thank you.
There you go, another compliment for the department. Well done. Councillor Geselbrock. Now you have to run to the other side, everybody.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a couple questions and then a few comments. First, I'm just curious about the trucks. Is the measurement of the weights that we use for this, does each individual truck measure individually, and separately, the weight for compostables, the weights for recyclables, and the weights for yard waste, or how is that calculated?
So the weights coming through are the individual weigh tickets for every single organics. So going to the circular waste facility, every single recycling trip going to Waste Connections, and every single landfill trip. So we get the net tonnage and then add it all up and then create this. Yeah.
Thank you. The second question is, are we, I'm curious just in terms of the waste generation and collected in our public facilities and parks, and is that tracked in any way, and have we noticed any trends in that?
Through your worship to Councillor Gesselbrack, that's not part of our curbside collection program, so we don't have that data to be able to present at this point in time.
And finally, I just want to say how excited I am with the new crew that has entered in. I just wanted to welcome Mr. Dallaran and Ms. Gellin for your work, and it's really exciting times with the regional district having this new solid waste management plan. There's an ambitious target, and we in the regional district have been a leader for a long time, and Nanaimo has been a leader, and you know, Canada-wide, provincially wide. However, it's just killing me that the Cowichan Valley has dropped in their diversion rate more than us. And so I'm really excited to have this energy here and the work to further progress our diversion targets. So thank you so much, and I really appreciate the work that's been done. Thanks.
Take some comfort, Councillor Gesselbrock. We may not be winning, but the planet is. Any further questions? If not, thank you so very much, all of you, for the presentation. The next is Development Permit Application Number DP 1155-6117 Uplands Drive. And Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you.
Wait for the wipe down. I never thought the words of my granny about cleanliness being next to godliness would ring so loud in my ears.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just here to introduce development permit, as you mentioned, development permit application for 6117 Uplands Drive. Your Worship, this is for a 5-story building with 108 units. There's 51 one-bedroom units and 57 two-bedroom units that are proposed in this purpose-built rental building. There is one variance, as outlined in the report, from 14 meters to 15.85, a height variance. And I'd ask if we bring up attachment D. If you look at attachment D in your agenda package, it might be a little bit easier to see. And if we'll focus for a minute on the third image down, and Derek's just bringing that up for us. So this would be the elevation if you were standing on Uplands Drive, looking at the property, and you have on your left the existing Nanaimo Seniors Village. This site where the proposed building at is currently vacant. I know it's difficult to see there, but approximately through the 5th story, you'll see a red line, and that red line reflects the maximum height in the zone, so you can see the amount above the maximum height that's being requested as for the variance. I wanted to bring this image up because it gives you a sense of the impact of the height variance on two things. One, on the Nanaimo Seniors Village, which is on this image on the left-hand side. So you can see that in terms of views or impacts, any building which is 4 stories or higher already obstructs any views that may be in that area. So the height variance does not further negatively impact views. And if you shift over as to the right, you'll see the building height in relation to the Texada building, which is a 4-story building, but it's built on top of a parkade building, an elevated parkade. So it's actually comparable to both building heights and is actually slightly lower than the existing Texada. So the building height variance, although they're asking for a 1.85 meter variance under our bylaw, it is both sensitive to the existing buildings, and it's reflective of the buildings that we see out there at this time, Your Worship. There is a location plan on Schedule B and an air photo on Attachment G if Council's interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Any questions for Mr. Lindsay? If not, I'm going to call for somebody to make the motion. Councillor Armstrong. Motion. Seconded by Councillor Bonner. Any discussion? Councillor Turley, you're okay?
No, I just typed in comment to Sheila. Yeah, I have a question. So the height variance of 1.85 meters, is that including the screening for the rooftop equipment?
Sorry, Gary, can we pull that image back up for a second? Sorry, through your worship to Councillor Turley. So I did hear the question. I'm just asking for the image to be brought back up. So that you're referring to the two items that you see in this elevation. So those screening elements are exempt under our bylaw from height. So it's to the roof line in this case. And if you look at the left side of that image, you'll see the 1.85 meters identified there.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Turley, are you a yay or a nay? Support, thank you very much. Motion carries. The next is development permit application number DP 1167-400 Newcastle Avenue. Mr. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This development permit is to replace a 50-year-old boat shed currently at the Nanaimo Yacht Club. There's also a variance as part of this application. It's a variance for a side yard from 6 meters to 0. And if I can ask that the air photo be brought up, which I believe is attachment E in your package, you'll see that the Yacht Club sits over a number of parcels. And the yellow area in question here is the area where the variance is required because the boat shed actually straddles 2 property lines. So in order to allow for a replacement, basically in the same footprint where that boat shed is today, it requires a variance under our bylaw. So from 6 meters to 0 meters for a side yard variance. Again, Your Worship, it's virtually replacing that existing boat shed, same footprint. The building is slightly higher. It's 3.9 meters versus 3.6 of the existing boat sheds, but it's still well below the maximum that's permitted in the zoning bylaw, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Martman, seconded by Councillor Hemmens. Is there any discussion? Councillor Turley, any questions?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Turley?
I'm in favor.
In favor? Motion carries. No one opposed. Thank you very much. The next are bylaws. Zoning amendment bylaw number 2019, number 4500.134.
Mr. Turley is acting mayor.
Yes, that's right. Councillor Turley, in fairness, we're going to ask you to move the motion out of protocol.
Okay, which one are we on again?
Your Worship, and Councillor Turley, I think just because you're on the phone, maybe we would go to the next acting mayor in line, just.
Good idea.
Good idea. So that would be,
I
Kelly,
like
do you have a
unanimity.
list of the next acting mayor?
Give us a minute to determine who's going to get on stage next.
Any one of you could volunteer to do it that has it available, and maybe.
Well, then I'm going to suggest we take Councillor Martman, who moved it, and Councillor Thorpe, who seconded it.
Sure, is there only one?
It's 11A.
I lost mine. Councillor Thorpe.
The next person is Councillor Martman, and then it's me.
Okay.
So if you wish, Councillor Martman?
Yeah.
So then I will move that zoning amendment bylaw 2019, number 4500.134 to rezone 1534 Extension Road from single dwelling residence R1 to townhouse residential R6 with site-specific provisions to increase the maximum permitted floor area ratio be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Martman. Any discussion? All those in favor? Councillor Turley, are you in favor?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. The next is zoning amendment bylaw number 2020, number 4500.149.
Your Worship, I'll move that zoning amendment bylaw 2020, number 4500.149 to amend the home-based business regulations be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmens. Any discussion? All those in favor? Councillor Turley?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And the next is zoning amendment bylaw number 2019, number 4500.156.
That zoning amendment bylaw 2019, number 4500.156, to rezone 4961 Songbird Place from single-dwelling residential R1 to residential corridor COR1 be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Councillor Turley, what say you?
Yes.
Yes. None opposed. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have the bylaw status information sheet. Bylaw status sheet for information only. We have no notices of motion. And on to other business. The first item is correspondence dated December 4th, 2019 from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the Union of BC Municipalities requesting a voluntary contribution of $950.29. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wasn't sure if any councillors would wish to defer this until after our financial update meeting on Thursday, but this is a fairly small amount, and I'm prepared to move this recommendation at this time.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion? All those in favor? Councillor Turley, what say you?
Reluctantly, yes.
Very good. Motion carries unanimously. No sense arguing over chicken feed, as they say. The next is correspondence dated February 24th, 2020 from the Office of the Ombudsperson reporting on files closed for the City of Nanaimo between October 1st and December 31st, 2019.
Do we move to receive?
Yes. Ms. Gurry, move to receive.
Move to receive.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Councillor Turley?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. The next is correspondence from the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities, AVICC, dated March 20th, 2020, respecting rescheduling and hosting the AVICC convention from 2020 to 2021. Councillor Armstrong.
This one, I would like to make a motion to refer to the meeting on, I believe it's Thursday or Wednesday, because I would like to know what the cost is, right? And we don't have an idea of what the cost is, so I would not like to take this on until we see the cost and see where we are financially. Thank you.
Seconded, Councillor Martman. Any discussion? All those in favor? Councillor Turley, what say you?
Yes, I assume it's going to the Finance and Audit Committee.
Your Worship, just to Councillor Turley, it's a special council meeting on Thursday, April the 9th, that will be dealing with financial matters such as this.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Gesselbrock. The mic, please.
Thank you, Worship. Just to confirm, we'll have time to move this if we so choose Thursday to make it for the deadline to give them the heads up.
Yes, for the benefit of those listening at home, there is a deadline around booking for next year, April 20th, I understand it. So yes, Council will have a chance to deal with this on Thursday this week. I think I asked all those in favor. Councillor Turley, you are in favor?
Yes.
Yes. I saw none opposed. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next is Councillor Bonner's motion, the City of Nanaimo updates. It's deferred from the special council meeting on April 1st, 2020. Ms. Gurry?
Thank you, Worship. So Councillor Bonner wanted these motions dealt with at this meeting. So if he would like to move these motions and they receive a seconder, it can get discussed and go from there.
So moved by Councillor Bonner. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Armstrong? And
And-
Councillor Armstrong?
Your worship, just for clarification, just the first motion he's moving right now, so
Yes.
the motions will be dealt with one at a time.
Separately?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, if Councillor Bonner doesn't wish to speak to it first.
Thank you, Your Worship. I bring forward this motion with the idea that I think it's important that a good communication exists between the people who are working on the front line and the folks that are working at the city. And this has been a request from those folks on the front lines asking to have more updates from the city than they've been receiving in the past. And so it sort of speaks for itself. This is a request from the people who are working on the front lines so that they can work and create a coordinated communication and coordinated ask to the province, and also know what is actually taking place between the province, the city, and other things within what the city is allowed to talk at the time. Thank you.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I would like to see it be once a week instead of twice a week, because I believe just about everything is going to be privileged or confidential. And my other point is, if we're going to do this, then I think it should also be put on the city website, because there are others people that are actively working with the homeless that are not part of the coalition. So I think if we're going to do updates, it should be on the website so everybody knows what we're doing. Thank you.
Councillor Turley.
Thank you, Your Worship. The question I have is, what is the relationship, if at all, between the Homeless Coalition and the Health and Housing Task Force?
Perhaps Councillor Hemmons will answer that.
Jason Harrison is the co-chair of the Coalition, Jim, and he sits on the Health and Housing Task Force. Signe Madden and John McCormick are also members of the Health and Housing. Pardon me, they're members of the Coalition who are also members of the Task Force. So we have a lot of crossover.
So my question would then be, given that we've reinstated the task force, would that not be an avenue for communication? Or is that not frequent enough?
Councillor Hemmons.
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. Currently, Jim, we don't know how often the Health and Housing Task Force is going to meet. If they're meeting weekly, I think it will probably suffice. But it wasn't until Wednesday that we actually put that task force back together, so we're not really sure what the frequency of meetings is going to be.
So I don't know if Councillor Bonner is amenable to a friendly amendment, but perhaps some wording along the line that where communication between the housing and what is it? Housing and Health and Housing Task Force doesn't meet the twice weekly, so we don't put it all on staff?
Councillor Armstrong.
I would like to make a friendly amendment that this correspondence be done weekly by either the Health and Housing Task Force, or if not from them, from a staff member, because then we wouldn't be duplicating and not wasting staff's time if the Health and Housing Task Force can just do their updates, if he's amenable to that.
Councillor Bonner? He said yes. Is agreeable to that amendment? Ms. Gurry?
And as Councillor Armstrong was the seconder, she's obviously amendable, so the amendment would be once per week, either by the Health and Housing Task Force or by staff. So if the Health and Housing Task Force doesn't meet, staff would be the updating. Okay.
Councillor Thorpe.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, I was just trying to process the amendment, which I'm a little bit better with, but I still won't be supporting this motion. I see it as unnecessary, seeing as the task force is being reestablished. It's a use of staff time in a very busy time for staff, and To me, this also implies that our staff wouldn't automatically communicate with groups that they need to on any particular file, and I trust that they would do that. And finally, I'm afraid I'm very uncomfortable with the idea the city needs to report to any special interest group, no matter how well-intentioned or valuable to our city. We don't send reports to the Chamber of Commerce on what we're doing, or to the hospitality industry, or to any other group. So I'm really uncomfortable with the precedent that we would be reporting to a group in town. Thank you.
Councillor Martman, did you wish to speak to this?
Yes. It's given me food for thought. Because I'm beginning to think we're playing with the trains a little bit. I'm wondering, with the reestablishment of the Health and Housing Task Force, if perhaps, but we've got a friendly amendment. Have we voted on the amendment, or are we speaking to the amendment?
So, Your Worship, with the friendly amendment, the original motion has changed. It's not a
Yes.
formal amendment. So you're you're just speaking to the motion that's been friendly amended.
You're speaking to the
Already
motion.
passed a friendly amendment.
It's a
so
friendly amendment. It's agreed by both the mover and the seconder, so we're speaking to the motion as amended.
Thank you, Your Worship.
that an update be provided. I understand what Councillor Thorpe is saying, but I think perhaps just a little bit of communication direction is needed. I will support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you. I'm in
You
favor.
just turned yourself off.
Thank you. I'm in favor of the amendment. And just some context for my colleagues. Don and I are in fairly regular contact with folks from the task force, and it has been indicated to us that there is a bit of a gap in communication. So this was really in the absence of, is the task force up and running? How often is it? This is really just a check-in, and I don't, it's not a report. It's simply a communication. As we're all working in the same direction, it's good to share information. Thank you.
I'm not going to be supporting the motion for similar reasons as already expressed by Councillor Thorpe. Firstly, I think it is unnecessary and redundant, and suggest, frankly, that staff who are already working hard on this issue, and a limited number of staff, given that ultimately the responsibilities for the delivery of mental health and addiction services, for housing, and all of those services lie with the province. I think that this places an unnecessary burden on them. And with great respect, what is the update going to be? Is it a memo? Is it a paragraph? The motion itself I don't find particularly compelling in terms of its content. There are matters, of course, that are being discussed between the city and the province of British Columbia and its agencies that will be of a confidential nature. Staff are going to have to sort out, or spend some time sorting out, potentially with even legal advice, what those matters that can be disclosed or not disclosed, as the case may be. If the whole point is to try and keep everybody in the loop, I understand that. But with great respect, the Nanaimo Homelessness Coalition is not a recognized legal entity per se. It's not even the Chamber of Commerce, for heaven's sakes, in terms of having being an incorporated body. The concept that the city has to be responsible for sending updates out to a group as significant and as important as they are, and is concerned about what is the topic of conversation on many people's lips now, only supplanted recently by COVID-19, as important as it is, I think it sets, as Councillor Thorpe has emphasized already, a very bad precedent. We hire people with the expectation they will do their work. I am confident that those who work for the city are able to provide information to and keep abreast the members of the Nanaimo Homelessness Coalition as is necessary and appropriate, having regard to their status. And likewise, the Health and Housing Task Force has that opportunity. Its members, the three major interest groups, as I understand it, are all represented. Their names have been announced tonight by Councillor Hemmons, who sit on the Health and Housing Task Force, which is the body that is expected to make recommendations to the city as to how and what its contribution would be, if any. And so in these circumstances, I simply cannot support the motion. Any further discussion?
Yes, Your Worship, Councillor Turley would like to speak.
Councillor Turley, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my concern with the motion is the fact that it's stating that the city will provide updates when we're not the main contributors to the whole scenario and problem. It's more an issue that Island Health and BC Housing are tasked to resolve. So, you know, I would be more comfortable if the motion read that if requested, the city of Nanaimo will provide updates, but not mandate it to do it on a weekly basis. So, you know, I'd be far more comfortable with if the group, the Nanaimo Homeless Coalition, wanted an answer on a specific topic that we're giving staff the go-ahead to provide it, provided it wasn't in camera. And I would think that they'd be demanding a lot more information of Island Health and BC Housing. So I'm afraid I can't support it the way it reads. Thank you.
Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thank you, Worship. I think that we're overcomplicating something that's really simple, vote of support for collaboration during this time of crisis to support the homeless community. This is not a complicated motion. It's not going to create large changes in relevation. It's just, let's keep everybody in the loop. So I'll be supporting this and the good work that staff's already doing, and just to let them know that council's behind you. Thank you.
Any further speakers? All those in favor of the motion? And opposed? Councillors Armstrong,
Opposed?
Thorpe, Krog, and Turley. Motion carries. The next is the motion deferred from the special council meeting respecting correspondence to Minister Darcy. Councillor Bonner. Did you wish me to read it again? Are you going to move it? Yes. Seconded, Councillor Hemmens.
Yep.
Councillor Hemmens.
Thanks, Don. I'll just jump in and say that this really simply came from my listening to the CBC radio last week and Minister Darcy being on and saying prior to the COVID pandemic breaking, her ministry was looking very closely at how to expand the safe supply program out of St. Paul's Hospital, and they were actively looking for pilot sites within the province to push that out. And so following, I believe, the process we took last time to get a letter to Minister Darcy, felt it prudent to move it here at the council table. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. And this, I believe this would be through you to Councillor Hemmens or Councillor Bonner. I'm just curious if it needs to be a little more forthcoming, if we are talking about safe supply, if it needs to highlight that. And the reason I'm asking is actually because within the last week, as crime has gone up, talking to some business owners that are impacted or worried they're going to be impacted, they are also too wondering if safe supply is an option for our community, at least those that I've spoken with, to help mitigate as the drug of choice is becoming harder to obtain, if having them provided would help reduce crime for those individuals. So my question to the chairs of the task force would be, does this need to be, spell it out a little more clearly exactly what we're asking for?
Councillor Turley? Ms. Gurry? Councillor?
I think I support this, however, only if we don't have to require variances in public hearings.
Sorry, could you repeat that again, Councillor Turley?
Sure. My concern about the motion is if we're providing a site, not financially, but if it requires a lot of variances and a public hearing, I'm not convinced it's in our best interest to go down that road, but I'm prepared to support it just to see what happens.
Councillor Armstrong.
I'm not in favor of safe drug supply unless we determine what type of drug, because in fairness, then alcoholics should be given free alcohol because they are committing crimes to get their alcohol. And it is also a health issue and one that they can die from if they don't get it, whereas dope sick, you don't die. alcoholism, you do. So I think that's a big thing we're going to have to look at, because I think you start to invoke charter arguments when you start looking at that if you do it for one, you need it to do it for others. The other concern I would be, if we're starting to give out free supplies of meth, well, that can make people react extremely violent in the community. So what's going to be the controls over that? I will definitely support like treatment facilities for mental health or for addictions, that type of stuff, but I'm very concerned unless we know exactly what type of drug they would be giving or what the experiment is like and what the results are from St. Paul's. Does it decrease crime? Does it increase crime? My concern is that we keep doing everything to keep people on drugs instead of trying to get people off drugs. So we're keeping people at a level of where their brains are starting to be impacted because they keep using. And I would like to see some of our resources put into areas where we can help them get off drugs. And right now, I don't see that happening. So those are my concerns. So I won't vote for the motion the way it's written, because I don't understand the consequences or the dollar factors or the legal implications. Thank you.
Councillor Hemmons?
Thank you, Your Worship. I respect Councillor Armstrong's opinion, which is based in a lot of years of law enforcement, and I have a lot of respect for it. To Councillor Brown's point, I don't think this council is ready for an argument or a debate on safe supply, so I would suggest we keep the language generic and recognizing that the innovative solutions that are coming out of that ministry typically are attached to safe supply, but we don't need to engage in that. And just a reminder for everyone, I believe it was in October, after the minister had been here, we wrote a letter with 3 asks. This was the 3rd ask, and I'm suggesting we rewrite the letter and say, hey, we're still here, we're ready and waiting. We don't need to repeat the other 2, but let's just capitalize on this opportunity that that ministry is looking to expand this program. Thank you.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to somewhat reluctantly not support this motion. Partly, I would be more comfortable if it came as a recommendation from the task force. I realize that we've sent a letter before, but I also don't care for the open language regarding willing to be a test site without having more background and information about what that would look like and what it would cost and what it would entail to our community. So to me, this is a little bit premature, and the intent is good, but I can't support it just on those principles. Thank you.
My understanding of how things work is that when the city has stated its position, it is the city's position until somebody changes it. A simple phone call would have sufficed to my office to ask me to send a reminder letter to the minister who hasn't shown the courtesy of replying, or the government in general to a letter signed by no less than 7 mayors, largely around this very same topic several months ago. So I'm going to actually not support it, not be out of stubbornness or a sense of being miserable, but simply because a letter simply reminding the minister of her position or our position vis-a-vis her suggestion, I think would have been the appropriate thing to do, and we wouldn't have spent council time even discussing it tonight or raising concerns that frankly are necessary. We came to a position that is our position. I'll happily send the letter whether this vote passes or it doesn't pass tonight, because that is council's position, and it's not inappropriate to send a letter reminding. But I'll send the letter if directed by council, and if the motion is defeated, I'll send a simple reminder letter reminding her that here's the attachment, and we'll leave it at that. So this is going to get to the minister, I suspect, one way or the other, but this, with great respect, is not the way to do it. We have a position, we stated the position, that was our position, it should remain our position, unless someone brought a motion to this council that said, that's not our position anymore, we want something different. This is the problem with motions on the fly. So, anyone else wish to speak to this? Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to acknowledge that I feel like we're following the process that we followed for the first one, which was that it came to this table, we debated whether that's where we wanted to go, and then we asked for the letter to be written. I apologize if you don't feel like the proper process was taken here, but the intent remains the same, that there is an opportunity of provincial government, and it would be prudent, I think, for us to exercise our right, just to remind them that we had said this. And I also would like to just offer that if we had a solid advocacy strategy, or at least some agreement about how we advocate to the provincial government, this could have been avoided.
All those, Councillor Bonner?
Thank you, Your Worship. I actually, since I'm relatively new to this position, didn't realize that I could just call the mayor up and he'd whistle off a letter to the minister. One of the reasons I'm supporting this motion is the minister has actually changed her tone to a certain amount. There's nuances and new things in her talking. And so it's based on that I thought a recommendation and motion from council would carry more weight than me walking into your office and saying, whistle off a letter to Darcy for me. That's the thing. I think it needs a bit of a more formal ask. Thank you.
Any further speakers? All those in favor of the motion? Councillor Turley, what say you?
In favor?
In favor? Those opposed? Councillors Armstrong, Thorpe, and Krog. Thank you. Motion carries. We have no question period. A motion for adjournment is appropriate. Moved Councillor Hemmens, seconded Councillor Martman. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.